My lords, our galaxy provides an array of specialized planets ranging from Ecumenopoli to Thrall, Resort, and even Penal Worlds. Today I shall rank them and explain what they are and how they work, starting with the worst and ending with the best. Penal Worlds come first. Penal Worlds, or colonies, are effectively space gulags covering an entire planet. The concept is similar to tactics used in the 18th and 19th century by the British Empire, who, knowing that prisons are expensive to maintain and prisoners often unruly, decided to ship their criminals to different places across the empire. This had not only the benefit of removing the unwashed elements of a population, but also created a workforce at their end destination. In our galaxy, the theme is much the same. To use Penal Worlds, you must first research the technology, but when unlocked for the minor cost of 1,000 unity, you can then designate a planet as a Penal World. This will reduce crime across all planets in your empire by 25%. Something you need to understand about crime is that as long as it's under 30% per planet, that planet will see no ill effects due to crime. It is only when crime raises over 30% issues begin to occur. The issues will range from such things as gang wars to criminal underworlds, which can cause a cascading increase in crime. None of this is positive. In terms of what a penal colony actually offers, sadly it's not a lot. The penal colony designation will increase worker population resource output by 10% planet-wide, which is fairly low to be honest. The other bonus it provides is one planetary warden job per 25 pops. You would assume that these wardens are to keep the prisoners in line, but sadly, the wardens don't really offer a huge amount. They do provide a small amount of unity, a minuscule amount of trade, and some amenities and stability. Nothing really fantastic, particularly at an empire-wide level. Certainly nothing like a resort world, which we'll come on to later. Of course the question is a penal world worth building? The answer is mostly maybe. The vast majority of empires in the galaxy will not have a problem with crime, and if there is a problem with crime, it's likely due to empire mismanagement, which really should be addressed rather than using a penal colony as a crutch. The only potential situation where a penal colony could be useful would be if your empire is suffering attack from criminal syndicate empires. These empires will attempt to instigate crime on your planets and, in fairness, can be quite difficult to control through the use of enforcers alone. You also have to take into account the opportunity cost of using enforcers, which obviously require people, rather than having those people work as alloy producers or researchers. However, even in the example of a criminal syndicate empire, I'm not sure a penal colony is a long-term solution, although it is a short-term fix. I believe in this case you would need to enact an ultimate solution, which will be war, and really to wipe out the criminal syndicate empire, or at least force them to change their ways, perhaps through an ideology war. A penal colony is a short-term solution and would save you having pops working as enforcers. So in summary, penal worlds aren't great. I personally don't think they're worth creating unless you have a truly insane number of planets. But of course if you disagree, feel free to explain why. Thrall Worlds come next, and they are in my opinion quite interesting indeed. With Thrall Worlds, your entire planet is purpose-built to maximize the growth rate of its enslaved population through a variety of reproductive incentives. Reproductive incentives, I'm sure, will vary empire to empire. Some examples in the Commonwealth range from free housing and nutrient cubes to all families with 5 children or more, and tax breaks scaling with child. Essentially, this means you can reproduce your way to 0% tax. That's a winner for sure. Now, what's most interesting about Thrall Worlds is that you're unable to grow free people upon it. The only growth that can occur on Thrall Worlds is slave growth, and this gets a 100% population growth speed bonus. How I want you to think of this planet is that it is purpose-built to extract the maximum potential from an enslaved population. The only way slaves are getting off this planet is through specialised military centres that forge them into loyal battle thrall armies and condition these soldiers for relentless warfare. The planet is effectively a giant breeding ground for slave soldiers. The Thrall World designation gives this planet type a unique job called the Overseer. They essentially reduce crime and have a small impact on planetary defensive armies. They're a bit like prison wardens, but not really, because the population is enslaved rather than criminal per se. Something to pay attention to is that Battle Thrall actually has two meanings in our galaxy. The slaves that you put on a Thrall world are not automatically converted into Battle Thralls. Battle Thralls is also a slavery type. If we look at the slavery controls, you'll see that you can select Battle Thralls, and Battle Thralls receive an increase in army damage by 20%. This slave type is described as a weaponized serf, often trained at birth in the martial arts and conditioned for absolute obedience. In exchange for unquestioning military service, they are granted more autonomy than other slaves and can be employed in a greater variety of jobs, such as soldier jobs. This, I would suggest, is slightly confusing, but like lots of things in our galaxy, it is what it is. The Battle Thrall slavery type, however, is very handy if you have a particularly aggressive species. You can combine this with the Thrall World designation to grow this population extra quickly, and end up with lots of very effective and aggressive soldiers. But should you build one? Well, Thrall Worlds are only particularly handy if you're an empire running a significant number of slaves. If that describes your empire, then they are going to be very valuable indeed, purely because of the population growth bonuses. More slaves means more workers, and this is only going to be a good thing. Given the fact it doesn't really take up any other jobs or any extra space, there's no specific districts you can or cannot build on it, I do really think this is a no-brainer. The only caveat is that you need to make sure you have enough overseers and enforcers to establish proper stability on the planet, because the last thing you want is this planet rebelling and leaving your empire with a hole in it. So to sum up, if you're a slaver empire, these are 100% worth it. Gestation Worlds. Gestation Worlds are unique to those taking the cybernetic tradition tree, but there are a few hoops you have to jump through. Gestation Worlds are described as planets packed full of maturation pods and nutrition slurry tanks. These devices are pivotal to the planet's infrastructure, as this is where drones prepare young biologicals for integration into the collective. Once you've unlocked the specific tradition via the cybernetic tree, and for the low price of 1,000 unity, you can designate a world into a Gestation World. This will replace some of the replicator and maintenance drone jobs with gestation jobs. They provide empire-wide population growth speed. The planet also gets a designation as a Gestation World, which gives a flat pop growth speed bonus of 10%. But the real power of this planet comes with the job. The job will turn alloys, food and/or minerals into society research, engineering research, amenities, and that all-important population growth speed empire-wide. Initially, you receive 400 jobs and that 10% population growth speed bonus. Through upgrading the central nexus and building additional districts, I was able to get this number up to 2,200 jobs. This provided me an empire-wide increased population growth of 308%. Now, for perhaps the most important piece of information, these worlds are only available to driven assimilator empires, not any old organic empire, hive, or even a machine that takes the cybernetic tradition tree. You must have the driven assimilator civic to access this world. Now, this might raise some eyebrows, as driven assimilators are not able to build medical buildings, thus increasing their population speed through conventional methods. They are historically designed to go to war and assimilate, thus growing their population aggressively. Of course, since cybernetic pops are not assembled, they are grown. This planet is, in fairness, quite fantastic indeed, and I cannot think of any situation where one would scoff at being offered population growth speed bonuses. especially when you can get it up into the several hundreds, and I'm sure with job efficiency it could go even higher. So, should you build one? Yes, absolutely. You have, in my opinion, nothing whatsoever to lose from doing so. It is essentially a free population growth bonus for basically zero cost. Of course, these are incredibly niche, even more so than Thrall Worlds, and perhaps they should be expanded upon. I'm imagining a nursery planet for a hive mind offering similar bonuses. Would that be a good idea? Let me know what you think. Resort worlds are next. Resort worlds are beautiful paradise-like planets dedicated entirely to leisure and relaxation. They don't inherently provide any additional resources, rather they are designed to offer boosts to happiness and stability across the Empire by giving citizens a luxurious place to escape to. Picture beaches, scenic views, a calm, peaceful atmosphere, essentially the Commonwealth's ultimate holiday destination. Resort worlds are unlocked by a Tier 2 technology, and the decision to create one can be used on any inhabited planet as long as you've not put districts on it. And of course, it will cost you 1,000 Unity. But are they worth building? Well, maybe. The key feature that these planets offer is the Resort World Worker job. This job increases trade from jobs by 2%, but its main attribute is that it reduces pop amenity usage by 1% empire-wide. Now, this isn't very clear because it doesn't say that this is what it does, but believe me, this is what it does. So as you can see via the planet on screen now, we have 7,100 specialist resort workers, which reduces our empire-wide amenities usage by 76.13%. But what does this mean? Looking at our workforce on this planet, you can see that their amenities usage is currently 227. Now normally, amenities to worker ratio is 1:1. So, for 12,171 human workers, they should require the same number of amenities, but currently they only require 227. This means that we have a large amenity surplus on the planet, because you get basic amenities from various jobs that you may have anyway. But remember, this effect is empire-wide, so effectively you're saving yourself from creating amenities jobs on every single planet across your empire. And this will of course become much more valuable the more planets that you have. If you have 5 planets, it's not particularly ideal, but if you have 500, it's ungodly incredible. The key point to take away here is the opportunity cost. If you have less people working amenities jobs on every single planet, i.e. holo theatres for example, which at their base level require 200 workers, those 200 workers could be doing other things, like researching or doing medical jobs or producing alloys. The opportunity cost is really important here. If these people are no longer needed to produce amenities, then they will be better able to contribute to the wider economy. Now, I managed to take this even further. I managed to get the pop amenities down to a minus 112%. The sad news is that this caps at minus 90%, so you cannot reduce amenities usage by more than 90%. Nevertheless, it is incredibly valuable. As stated, it's opportunity cost. So, is the resort world worth building? Well, let's do some maths. Let's assume we need about 15,000 amenities per planet. Not taking into account job efficiency, that means we need approximately 461 entertainers per planet. Now, if we only needed 10% of those 15,000 amenities due to our resort world, it's very likely you'd get these 1,500 amenities from other jobs anyway, like medical workers for example, so you probably wouldn't need the holo theatre at all anyway. And there's also the option of building luxury housing, which gives 2,500 or 5,000 amenities with zero pop cost, which would reduce the need for workers anyway. Of course, this has to come with the massive caveat, with the current civilian situation how it is, amenities are not really an issue. When you throw in the Grand Archive as well, yeah, are resort worlds really worth it? I'll let you decide for yourselves, but they will definitely become more valuable with the more planets you have, and who knows what's going to happen to civilians. Maybe the resort world will become more powerful in the future. And now onto Ecumenopolis by far the best specialized planet we have access to in our galaxy. Ecumenopolis are vast city-covered planets where every mountain has been leveled, every ocean drained, and every square meter of land paved over in service of the Empire. These worlds are monuments to industrial ambition. They house colossal naval dockyards, research blocks stretching continents, star fusion forges, and manufacturing complexes capable of producing an empire's worth of goods. Ecumenopolis are unlocked via the Archaeology Project Ascension perk, which is not available to Machine or Hive empires, as they have Machine or Hive world equivalents. You can only convert a planet that's been built up using city districts, i.e. completely free of generator, mining or agricultural districts. This gives you the decision to encase the world in metal, and for the cost of 20,000 minerals and 200 influence, you can do just that. The process will take approximately 10 years, and all normal planetary features are removed. Interestingly, the city lights of the planet are determined by the ship appearance of the terraforming empire, and the only pre-existing Ecumenopolis that we're aware of is the homeworld of the Keepers of Knowledge, the Fallen Empire. ECUs provide fantastic bonuses. They give perfect habitability for any citizen living upon it, and as a base, increase resources from jobs by 20%, population growth speed, and population assembly speed by 15%. The real feature of an Ecumenopolis, however, is that it provides unlocked districts. This means that you can build any specialist district you wish. The common choices here will be alloy, i.e. foundries, or research for tech. This flexibility opens up your empire's ability to produce specialist resources. An example here is an ECU dedicated to producing alloy, consumer goods, and strategic resource. If this is your choice, then remember to select the specific designation. In this case it would be Foundry, which would reduce alloy upkeep and increase build speed of the districts. ECUs are almost always worth building, so long as you're able to support the resource requirement for having them. They are like sponges and will suck up your minerals and energy. I will however mention that since the 4.0 changes, they do appear a little bit worse. The bonuses that they used to get for alloy production appear to have been taken away, and using this as an example, 18,600 workers are only producing 2,400 alloys. This feels a bit underwhelming, but am I right to question this? Tell me what you think. Certainly if you consider you'll need several million alloys to fill out a naval cap if you're fighting high-level crisis events. ECUs are also the only one on the list that you can build more than one of, so go nuts. Outproducing your enemies is a surefire way to beat them on the galactic stage. If you enjoyed this and you want to hear about religion in Stellaris, I suggest clicking the video on screen now.